killed his own brother and left a child behind with nothing. What kind of king, what kind of man does that?
Everybody, welcome back to Real Ripe and Real Rotten. This is the podcast where we're taking a look at the highs and lows of your favorite Hollywood artists. Each month we're going to be using Rotten Tomatoes to determine the best and worst film in one individual filmography. You can listen along as we try to figure out what went right and what went wrong. Usually we do that. We're continuing our 2019 Best Picture Oscar run here. We did Bohemian Rhapsody a couple days ago, and now we're going to be moving on to the best rated film, at least according to Rotten Tomatoes, of the 2019 Best Picture Oscar contenders. It's called Black Panther. It's part of the MCU. It's the 18th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. My name is Wes Teasdale. I'm joined by Clay McCormick. Clay, how are you?
I'm good. You can't see it, but I'm doing the Wakanda Forever thing right now. So,
I've been watching a lot of. I'm playing Final Fantasy X, replaying it, and they have a little greeting, and I always think of that as the Wakandan thing, but it's not the same. We're going to be talking about Wakanda, the adventures of Black Panther, the adventures of Killmonger, the most appropriately titled villain of all time. And we're going to be trying to figure out whether or not this is a Best Picture contender, where it stands in the Pantheon, and all that stuff. So, Pantherion, where it stands, I guess that's it. So we'll just get into it. I'm going to say that it is 97% on the tomatometer, which is the Rotten Tomatoes meter. The critical consensus is Black Panther elevates superhero cinema to thrilling new heights while telling one of MCU's most absorbing stories and introducing some of its most fully realized characters. So that's it. Clay, have you seen all of the MCU films? Is there any one that you have not seen?
I have seen all of them, yes.
Okay. I have not. I probably should have thought about how much I've seen. I would guess I've seen 60% of them. This is the most recent one that I've seen. I had not seen it before this watch, that I watched it last night for this podcast. But I guess it'll start off, it feels like an MCU movie. I guess so I'll throw it to you. What say you about that? It feels like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to me.
I have seen gods fly. I've seen men build weapons that I couldn't even imagine. I've seen aliens drop from the sky.
Yeah.
But I have never seen anything like this. How much more are you hiding?
Hold up. Let's go.
We are home. My son, it is your time.
Show me my respect and bow down.
You get to decide what kind of king you are going to be. Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
The revolution will not be televised.
Show me my respect and bow down. We own ya. We own ya. We only getting started now. Cause we own ya. Everybody think they know me now. Cause we own ya. You and I'm my homie now. Cause we own ya.
I waited my entire life for this. The world's gonna start over. I'ma burn it all.
What happens now determines what happens to the rest of the world.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out.
Wakanda forever!
The revolution will not be televised.
Let's have some fun.
The revolution will be live.
It does. That critical consensus thing that you read, I agree with like half of that. I think this movie does a lot of things really well that they haven't done in some of the other movies, but I think it's ultimately held down by I don't know if held down is the word, but like it's not as revolutionary, at least story-wise, as I think it gets credit for. It's
do you think that the story gets credit for that, or just the content of the story? Because I would agree, this is very much an MCU thing, to the point where I got bored during the last half hour, where it's just the big fight in a field scene for a half hour, and it's like, I can kind of do without this at this point.
I can sum up my feelings for this movie by saying I think the middle of it is fantastic. I think there's like half an hour to 40 minutes of it that is great, that I wish had been the entire movie, that is way too short, and I do not like the last half hour or so, the battle sequence and stuff. I think it's really weak, personally. Yep.
It looks very empty. We can talk about the battle scene at the end. It looks I was almost thinking like Braveheart felt like it had more people on the battlefield, and that was a much older movie with like much less special effects and everything going on to it. It feels like a very empty movie, or an empty fight scene, at least at the very end.
Yeah, and it's a fight scene that you do.
Some rhinos come in.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think it earns the conflict that they're presenting, right? Because the thing that I really like about this movie is I think the politics of Wakanda are very interesting. I think that stuff is really cool. I love Killmonger as a character because I think he really walks that line really well of what makes a great villain, which is the stuff they're saying isn't entirely wrong. It's just that the way that they're going about it is not the correct way to go about it. Mm-hmm. And the fight at the end tries to cash in on this cultural divide, right? So like the setup for the main Wakandan conflict is they've got all this technology, which, you know, we can get to that in a second. They've got all
wealth.
This technology. Yeah, they're super rich. They could probably save the entire world by themselves if they wanted to. But they are very isolationist, and they do not. Nobody outside of Wakanda knows what they are, and basically half the people in Wakanda, at least the ones that were shown anyway, are like, maybe we should reach out and join the world, and the other half are like, no, we didn't get this way because we didn't get as prosperous as we are because we helped people, because the rest of the world is dirty. It's, you know, like that thing where it's like, you know, millionaires don't become millionaires because they spend a lot of money.
Yeah, or giving it away. You don't become a millionaire by giving away your money.
Right. And that argument is very interesting. I think that's a really, because it takes, and in the character of Killmonger especially, being just like more or less a guy from Oakland, it really allows them to talk about what if Wakanda really existed and their politics played out the way they do in this movie. There would be a lot of people that would be really fucking pissed off at them, you know, and I think that stuff is really interesting. And I love that essentially at the end, T'Challa comes to the same conclusion that Killmonger and Killmonger's dad had, but whereas Killmonger is coming at it from hatred and violence, T'Challa comes at it from a place of love, which I think is a great character move. I think that's a nice progression.
Yeah.
But the divide that they present of these two sides of the coin, I don't think they spend enough time with it to warrant this end battle where T'Challa's best friend all of a sudden takes his entire army and turns on T'Challa, and then turns on his wife too. Mm-hmm. And they just, it becomes this like very Civil War battle that does not, apparently everybody who lives in Wakanda has no idea is happening, because you don't see how this fight is affecting anybody in the city.
Right.
It's all on the, it's like everybody in Parliament met on the soccer field and are just beating the shit out of each other for some reason.
It's very much the Phantom Menace fight. It happens outside of Naboo's city. You know, it's just on the big field outside of the city. On the rolling hills of Naboo. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the biggest problem for me in that sequence is I don't think it takes a lot of really interesting stuff that they've done up to that point and kind of forgets it in favor of just a more or less throwaway, you know, stock Marvel fight.
Yeah. Yep.
And it extends. I'm sorry to keep talking for so long, but it extends to T'Challa himself and the fight with Killmonger as well, because the structure of this movie is very Rocky III-esque. Rocky III being the most perfectly structured movie ever made. And it's a movie that it's a structure that gets tapped into very frequently for these superhero movies, because the idea is you've got a superhero at the height of his power who's then blindsided by someone he doesn't expect, and then is knocked down to his lowest point, and then has to fight back up to defeat this person, and becoming learning something about it in the process. They did it in Dark Knight Rises. They do it all the time. However, the thing they forget every time that they go to the Rocky III well is that even though Rocky III ends with Rocky punching another guy harder than he can get punched, that's not how he beats Clubber Lang. He beats Clubber Lang because he learns a completely different way of fighting.
Yep.
So he has to learn something new and gain a new skill in order to defeat the bad guy. And in this one, much like in Dark Knight Rises, T'Challa doesn't really gain anything new. He doesn't have a struggle that he has to overcome. He just gets the shit kicked out of him, and then he gets his juice back, and then they they have a punch fight.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's my biggest, the thing that I like the least about it is that they just streamline the ending so much that it takes any sort of character growth or dramatic tension between those two fights. They're both on equal footing. There's no
they have the exact same costumes and powers and everything too.
Yeah. They don't even say oh, Killmonger's got a more powerful suit than you got. You have the old suit. They don't even really do that. So yeah, I think it's just the last half-hour battle scene it feels really, really empty to me, and it's a shame because I think they do a lot of great stuff up until that point.
I think basically this is just a Marvel thing. When just talking about the MCU, they certainly have a way that they want to tell their stories, and the tone, they pretty much mastered the tone that they want across everything. And I think that they are hesitant to really change things up too much. They change it by the star of the movie sort of changes the tone a little bit. Thor Ragnarok is a lot more funny and goofy and sort of over the top than Black Panther is, which Black Panther is probably the least funny of the Marvel movies, I think. And it almost felt as a little bit this is where they felt they had to insert a joke to lighten the mood a little bit.
I can see that.
The main thing is that his sister, the scientist, who's basically Q, she feels very much like she belongs in the universe, but it feels like she's substantially there to provide a little bit of comic relief for things. And T'Challa himself is extremely unfunny. He's a very serious character, not like Thor and Hulk when they get together. So I think that I think the problem is when it goes into the battle, they know that they have to end these movies like that. And I thought that this movie, the reason this movie succeeds and a lot of the other Marvel movies maybe don't get nominated for Best Picture is that this one felt to me like the story could exist outside of the superhero structure that it's stuck in, and because the narrative itself is interesting, but unfortunately it's also stuck being this superhero Marvel movie, and they know they have to fight, they know they have to have the suit, and so the resolution of the fighting feels very lackluster compared to the interactions between Killmonger and T'Challa. And I would say that in my opinion that's even more just due to I really like Killmonger, even though I don't think the performance is great, but I really like the character himself. I think that the interplay between those two is really satisfying, and he really, I think both the villains in this one are good. What is it, Claw and
Claw,
T'Challa are both the kind of villains that you viscerally have a dislike for. They're very good at making you not like them. Claw in particular is kind of like that. And so I think that to me, the real reason this succeeds is the villains. It's probably my favorite part of all the MCU films. I think the villains here are really strong.
Well, yeah, it presents, T'Challa is, for lack of a better term, kind of naive about the world.
Yep.
In a certain respect. And Killmonger works so well because Killmonger is very realistic in his outlook on the world. And so bringing that element in and throwing it into T'Challa's face instantly makes for a very good contrast.
He's thought about it more than T'Challa ever had to. T'Challa just sort of goes along with it, yeah.
Yeah, which is why I wish they had done more of that stuff in the middle. Like, the first time I saw this, I kind of was just like, whatever for the first hour until Killmonger gets to Wakanda. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm into this, because once they do it's the son is there to fight for the throne, and he wins, and all this politics stuff that's actually very engaging. I was like, oh, this is the movie. I love this. And then that's over in like 15 minutes. It's over very quickly.
Yep.
So yeah, I wish there was more of that. I think that could have been even more revolutionary and impressive if they had managed to extend that out. When I watched it this time, I think I liked it more on the second watch, because I looked at the first hour more as like a James Bond movie, because it's a very, very James Bondy.
Yeah. Yes, especially when they're in the casino, there's a very James Bondy thing. When they're in that sort of I don't know if it must be a casino, but that Asian casino.
Yeah, the whole feel is very James Bond. They got a car chase going on and everything, and it's very cool, very stylish. And I was like, okay, I still don't love this stuff, but I get it, because it looks fantastic. Say what you want about the story, this movie is like a design masterpiece. Mm-hmm. Everything in this movie looks unbelievable. Like if this doesn't win an Oscar for best costumes, then they got a problem over there.
Yeah, I would say that the CGI rhinos don't look great, and
those look a little stock.
When T'Challa and Killmonger are fighting as the Panther costumes does not always really look spectacular, but everything else that's sort of a real costume looks really good.
Yeah. I mean, even like, and so I get why they spend so much time just like showing off at the beginning, because the design is amazing, and it is really revolutionary as far as like you've got this African culture that is at the same time rooted in tradition in its designs, and also very, 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 very ultra modern, if not even futuristic. Mm-hmm. And everything just drips with that design quality. So I get why you would spend that much time showing it off and doing slow pans through the city and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I just wish they had got to the meat of the story a little bit faster.
Yeah, I might disagree slightly. I do like the opening bit. I like the middle. I really just don't like the fight scene stuff at the very end. But I think that the characters themselves, I think, are good enough to carry the opening bits. Even if I'm not particularly impressed with T'Challa, I think he's fairly bland as a character. Killmonger is really strong, and I think Michael B. Jordan, but he like teeters towards the edge of being a little bit too much. But I think my biggest thing is when I'm thinking about, because we're watching this in context of Best Picture movies, right? And I was wondering how much, and this is going to be me speaking from a place where I don't know tremendous amount about comics, because I don't read them regularly or anything. But how much are you allowed to hold against a film if the dialogue mimics its source material and it's not really the most cinematic way of talking to each other? Because as much as I like the conflict between T'Challa and Killmonger, they basically get it all across in two scenes where they explain to each other very bluntly what they're talking about. And it's like they don't have time to really get into the nuance, and they don't have a lot of other scenes where they exist outside of that, where T'Challa is thinking. T'Challa does it more than Killmonger, but Killmonger never has scenes outside of it where he's really explaining his thought process, because his point of view is very strong and very blunt, and it makes sense. It's just that it's not, the movie itself is not nuanced. They have to do the comic booky type thing because they're limited with how much text you can get across in a comic book. They have to kind of explain it very quickly to each other, and it doesn't really feel cinematic, and it doesn't feel Best Picture-y, in my opinion, but it is the source material. You know what I mean? Yeah.
What's funny is like, if you told this story as a period piece, 100% this would end up being a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah.
Because I mean, because it has all the same elements: costume design, grand drama based on Shakespearean style.
Yes, a lot of king royalty, royal blood feuding and stuff like that.
Yeah, blood feuds and, lines of succession, and you have this big battle at the end and everything. And I think it would be, I think
racism is a big part of it too. Like even the, I guess you can make an argument. It's not even white and black in this. It's more like black on black, hostility.
Just don't say crime.
Yeah, don't say black ice. But it's more like the sort of like feuding, whether or not like how a society and how a culture would sort of move forward. Like it's a sort of turmoil between how a culture considers itself that it wants to be moving forward into the future, and how the sort of old ways of holding it back and things like that.
Yeah, and it's a very, sorry, I don't know if you can hear that, but my dog is drinking a lot of water very loudly right now. It's the core dispute of it's basically like an isolationism versus a globalism kind of argument, right? Which is a very pertinent discussion to have. And they don't just present it in a way that's just black and white. They give you these options where you've got, like I was saying, you've got Killmonger Killmonger is a globalist, but he's not a globalist in the way that most people would assume, like the positive version of being a globalist.
Yeah, he's not Jewish.
Right, yeah. Jesus. I want to cut that one out. I don't know. They present the grays of the argument couched in this superhero shell, which, I wonder, I don't know, because, I love these movies, but I don't know. I mean, I get why this is a Best Picture nominee. Like, I think this kind of goes into the territory of what it is versus more than exactly how good of a quote unquote good of a movie it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because undeniably it has this massive cultural impact and stuff. But if you're looking at it just on the merits of the movie itself, I don't know if it's a matter of the fact that the comic book stuff makes it feel less Best Picture-y than it would if it was just like a drab
period. Yeah,
it's period piece. Monarchy drama.
Yeah, because I do think that it has the most to say out of all the MCU films, because it is is sort of the global, like it is a very much a political thing of being a global influence versus being a sort of xenophobic and like insular interested country. Mm-hmm. And I think that they also tie that really effectively to more the sense of like how it's not just on like a sort of political level, but it's more on a personal level of what you do. It's not all about like what Wakanda can do for everything else. It's more, how do you help other people if you just sort of eliminate the Wakandan like state lines? Like if you eliminate the lines on the map, what is good for Wakanda to do? Right. And I thought that the maybe the weakness of that movie is that I don't think that the old way really has much of it doesn't have a great rationale for it. He goes back and talks to his father that second time, and he's like, why did you like allow this stuff to happen? I don't really, what is the reason for leaving Killmonger behind as a kid? Why did they do that? Just because he thinks that he didn't want to bring attention to something, but who's going to care about a missing like kid? And like his father gets murdered, they're in Oakland, and then the kid is just gone. I mean, I sort of understand it, but at the same time, it felt like that kind of had to happen in order for the rest of the movie to go forward, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I'm not totally sure what the rationale there is as far as leaving the kid behind. But and I think it ties into the general, T'Challa's point of view is less easily explained than Killmonger's. Killmonger's is like a very visceral, in-your-face sort of explainer about what he thinks, and T'Challa's is more sort of touchy-feely in a way, and so it comes across as a little bit less pointed. You know what I mean? His point of view is more just, it's generally a good idea to be kind to and good to other people, which is obviously a good thing, but it doesn't have the personal impact of Killmonger's story. So I think that he kind of suffers as a character in opposition to him, even though he is sort of the paragon of good and the paragon of virtue. And I think that works for Black Panther.
And that's why I wish that there had been more stuff in the middle. Like I think they missed a great opportunity after he gets the shit kicked out of him to have a real, time of reflection on stuff, instead of just going right into taking that drug or taking the plant thing and then just yelling at his dad. I would have liked to have seen T'Challa without his powers recovering, having to kind of like think things over,
Yeah.
Well,
you know what's weird that they don't do? He never gets stuck out of Wakanda.
Oh yeah.
You would have thought that he would have been sent to Oakland or something for a little bit, and would have changed his opinion about like how much he can help. But it's funny that the movie always takes place in this very utopian world where Killmonger coming in is a bad thing, but T'Challa never has to leave. He just he doesn't come to his rationale through any kind of plot device. He just kind of realizes it after a while.
Yeah. There's not really much that sends him on his way, like I think the weakest, as much as I like the character, I think the weakest thread of a section of the movie there in that story is after he gets beat up, when they end up finding him at M'Baku's place, who I love that guy. I think his character, he's great, but even there, the handoff is so quick, and it's like there's a little bit of tension when he's asking M'Baku for help in the upcoming fight, but there's no like real time spent in that other kingdom where M'Baku could maybe like impart some wisdom onto T'Challa about how Wakanda is acting and has been treating his kingdom and all this kind of stuff. It's very much I know that your battle you're fighting is going to be pretty important, but I just don't want to help.
Yeah.
Like there's not really a lot gained from that scene other than setting it up for when they show up at the end as a surprise.
Yeah. The justification being that he spared him earlier, so they're even now. They've spared each other and they're even. Right.
And even in that scene too, like there's no moment where M'Baku is like using he's got an advantage over T'Challa's mother and everybody who's come to see him, and he doesn't even like entertain the idea of fucking with them a little bit, or like taking the opportunity to spit some truth at them, or even he doesn't even think twice about maybe taking the Black Panther stuff. Like even if he's only doing it for show, or there's no moment where like he has the grail and then he hands it off to the person who really deserves it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which it would have been nice to have a little bit more in there of because the important part of the Rocky story, the Rocky 3 plot line, is when Rocky hits bottom after he gets the shit kicked out of him and Mick dies, and he has to, and that's where the meat of the story comes. And in this one, he just sort of like bounces off the bottom and comes right back up. So it feels a little bit hollow to me.
I mean, do you think that do you think at that point what the movie is saying is that, because I sort of see the weakness of the Wakandans on some level is that they're so tradition bound. That they can't stop Killmonger because he basically won the fight. Like that's the end game there. If you win the fight, you are the king. And maybe you could kind of make the argument that T'Challa does sort of break with tradition because he ultimately decides to make Wakanda great again and go global. But he like the thing about it is that the movie doesn't really stress that comparison, that in order to beat Killmonger, he has to sort of get around the traditional aspects of their country and embrace a new change. It all comes down to them punching each other.
Exactly.
At the end. Yeah. And I think that I think the movie is kind of hinting at that, but it really has to abruptly drop that because he doesn't have time to think about that in between when he gets revived and goes on towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I was kind of hoping that after he took the Black Panther stuff, he would be underpowered in some way, just to make it a little bit more difficult and not just a CGI punch fight. And I think, and part of this, I mean, we can move into the technology stuff. I think they're running into a problem with these movies. This one, Iron Man does this a lot now, where I would argue there's too much technology. It's too futuristic.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the stuff that Siri, is that her name?
His sister.
His sister, yeah. I can't remember if it's Siri or if it's something like that.
I thought it was like, yeah, you go ahead and I'll fill
Yuri,
you in.
or I don't know, one of those. The stuff that she can do and has at her disposal it's magic.
Yeah, it's
magic.
Shuri is her name. Shuri,
that's what it is. Shuri. It's magical. There's like they've got these beads that can do whatever the plot needs them to do, and they've got like
they can
8
stop
different
cars
types.
and they can heal your back if it's broken.
Yeah, and they've got 8 different types of technology that all have like 1,000 different applications.
Yeah. Did he never use his sneaker shoes in the movie?
No, not actively. I don't think there was a scene where they brought that up.
That was really bizarre. I was looking forward to him sneaking around at some point, but he never. That was weird. It was the opposite of Bond, because in every Bond movie, you're like, well, how's he going to use these 3 things that he got from Q? And they don't really do that here.
Well, the one that they do zero in on at the end is my least favorite one, which is that what the fuck did they call it?
The kinetic energy suit?
Nope, that was fine. It was the remote piloting system thing.
Oh,
I
sure.
hate that thing. Like it takes away any sort of tension regarding the act that the character has to do, to the point where, like, instead of just sending what's his face Bilbo Baggins there in a plane up to fly and shoot these things down, he's doing it remotely. So there's no tension as far as his own safety is concerned.
No, it's only tension in as terms of whether or not he'll shoot it down before they cross the end zone.
And so they then have to manufacture this other tension by having this one ship show outside the room he's in and just start blasting the window.
Yeah.
It's like, well, why don't you just put him in the fucking plane? You know?
Yeah.
And especially when he makes this big show of like manning up and doing it. It's like, okay, but you're playing a video game right now. I'm not worried about you getting killed because you're just playing a video game.
Yeah.
It's cool technology, but it's like, I don't know.
No, it's the same. The problem with it is the same as the big sort of battle scene at the end. It all feels kind of rote. It just feels like you're just filling a little bit of time until you get to the end of it. So there's no stakes to him sort of flying around. He's just shooting these things. He's going to shoot these things down, but it also has no. That character isn't really built for anything in the movie. He's kind of an interesting sort of, I wouldn't call him fluff or useless, but he doesn't really amount to much, in the grand, he doesn't have his own storyline that goes along with it. Maybe it's that he learns about how Wakanda is in real life, or in terms of what he views as real life, but it's kind of an empty character. He doesn't have a lot going on for him by the end of it.
Yeah, and he's got a little bit of like being the representative of the outside world who
he's the audience member.
He learns about Wakanda and stuff, but luckily they don't spend too much time on that.
I like Martin Freeman though. I think Martin Freeman's a really good actor. Yeah, he plays Everett K. Ross, which is the name of that character. Who's apparently, I'm looking at the little blurb here. In the comics, he's more comic relief than he is in this. He's more of a serious character, I guess.
Yeah, I've never encountered that character in the comics. I'm getting old enough now where a lot of the stuff they're pulling into these movies are from newer books that I haven't read.
Okay.
Because they're destroying my childhood.
That's right.
But just another tag on the technology thing. I feel like another thing that a lot of these movies, and I'm not just saying Marvel Comics movies, I'm just talking about movies in general, these big action movies that are very futuristic and have all this technology and stuff. I think I've mentioned this before on some other podcasts that we did. But I feel like usually these movies or these stories have these big technological things for the purpose of having them break.
Mm-hmm.
So like
you've got somebody,
yeah, because then because if you've got this magic wand that you can just solve your problems with by waving the magic wand, the interesting story out of that comes when you go to use the wand and now the wand is broken.
Yes.
It's like with Star Trek when they, need to fire the phasers, but you can't, the phasers are broken. Shit, we have to blow up the ship, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And I feel like they're forgetting to do that, and they're just having everybody has magic wands, and they're just all waving magic wands at each other. So it's not really that engaging to watch. So my feeling is, okay, if Killmonger has a magic wand and T'Challa has a magic wand, having them have a magic wand fight is not really that interesting. But if Killmonger has a magic wand and T'Challa has a magic wand, but it's broken, how does that fight play out then? That's where the interesting stuff comes from for me.
Yeah, and I think that the magic wandy aspect to it actually kind of ties into the powers of the Black Panther himself, where he's a pretty generic superhero in terms of like what his powers are and everything. You know, he's good at fighting. He's super athletic. He can get punched and then he can shoot out his kinetic energy and knock everybody back. But he doesn't have like the thing in the way that like the Hulk does, or Iron Man or Thor even. And so you end up, it ends up feeling a little bit underwhelming in terms of him losing his thing, because he's like, just drinking that potion causes him to lose his powers. But I didn't notice a tremendous difference. He can't jump as high, you know, he's still a good fighter and everything when he doesn't have the potion. So him depowering doesn't really amount to much. And when they up power, it really just turns into the ability of what the suit can do, which is absorb energy and then knock everybody out.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the thing that gets lost with Black Panther, at least so far, is I don't really know what his flaw is.
He's kind of I would say he works in comparison to the other Avengers because he's the uptight one, I guess is the way you could think. Like he's the most stick in the muddy, I would think, would be the way that I would describe him compared to the others. Yeah,
but that's not really a flaw.
No, it's more how they play off of each other. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a character interaction thing. But I mean, you've got Thor, whose flaw is his pride. The Hulk's is his anger. Iron Man's is his
pride. I would say too.
Or I would say hubris more. I guess I would call them two different kinds of pride.
Yeah.
But they all kind of have a thing that is their character flaw that, when it's leaned into, makes them make bad decisions. And I don't know if T'Challa really has one that's as clear as the other ones are. I think if he does, they kind of solve it by the end of the movie. Because in Civil War, I found him more interesting in Civil War, because he was still more of that isolationist kind of like, I'm going to do for Wakanda what Wakanda needs. And he goes down that path a little bit more, and that is interesting in contrast to the rest of the Avengers, who are very much a global
team. I mean, he's
so I don't know what his thing, and I think that kind of all of the other Avengers who I listed, their flaws play into what their power sets are, in various ways that I don't really need to explain.
Yeah.
But with Black Panther, I don't know where that connection is, because his power set is fairly generic. It's generic, but it's also incredibly overpowered.
Yeah.
I think anyway. So I'm not really sure what the next move for him is character-wise.
Yeah, he's you would have to flesh that out. I mean, they could play up the sort of Wakandan lone gunman type thing if he wanted to go down that route. But he's also not written as unkind as that. Like he's a fairly decent guy. So it's hard to sort of turn him as the Wolverine to the X-Men type role, where he's the sort of outsider douchebag guy to the rest of the team.
Right. And he shouldn't be a douchebag. Right. But, I don't know.
But if you the conflict there of him being a Wakanda on its own is tough to tie into a character who's extremely pleasant outside of that, and seems like he wants to help people.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think back to how they used him in Infinity War.
I just remember him in the fight scenes. Honestly, that's all I remember.
Yeah, because I mean, they bring the Vision there in order to have Shuri try to get the stone out of his head. But yeah, there's not a lot of pushback or anything from him. He's just sort of like, yeah, you guys are welcome here. We're going to help you fight this guy, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not that I don't know if pushback is what they needed, but I don't know. He's just sort of like, his use in that movie and all of Wakanda's use in that movie is just sort of like, we also have these characters that we need to use.
Yes. Yep. This will be the place for the battle, and this is the place where the tech is good enough where we can kind of figure out the stones.
They got a lot of open space there, perfect for fighting things.
Yes, absolutely. There's only a couple of large boulders all around. They get the rhinos out of there, and then they're ready to go.
That's another one, too, where my biggest problem with all these movies is how they just completely forget about the environments that they're fighting in and how these battles affect. I think the first Avengers movie, did it the best. And actually, I would say both Avengers movies, because they're fighting in the middle of these giant cities, and so you're getting a look at the people of the city and how these things affect everybody and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Infinity War, I don't really mind it too much, but in this one, it feels like when so much of your movie, like a big character of the movie in this is Wakanda, the country itself. So it surprises me that they don't have any look into how anything that is happening affects anybody in the city or the country or whatever.
Yeah. Save for the scene where he's walking with that ex-girlfriend of his.
Yeah.
They're walking through the marketplace. That's really the only time that you spend a lot of you spend a scene in the country itself. Outside of that, it's all sort of events, like when he's fighting, and that feels like it's not really the common people are attending that. It's more like the families are attending those kind of things.
I honestly would love to see in the next Black Panther movie, I would like to see more the fallout of the decisions that they're making here, where they're choosing to expand into the rest of the world and kind of expose themselves or introduce themselves to the rest of the world. I would be interested to see more stuff from the level of the people and how they react to this and how they respond to it and whether or not they are cool with it and how that splits up, because maybe this wasn't the right decision.
Yeah,
I don't know. I would really be interested in T'Challa having to deal with this decision that he's made and maybe thinking it's not the right one.
I mean, to not get too if you want to mirror like politics in a way. What's funny about the end is that he takes a very traditionally left-wing position, which is I'm going to throw money at the problem to fix it.
Yeah.
And I feel you could really, like, I was thinking of it as sort of a joke, but a sequel to the movie would be like T'Challa trying to work with like inner city youth who are just like, fuck you, buddy. Like he's not getting anywhere with the kids. And
he's talking to these kids and it's just a bunch of like younger Killmongers who are like, I'm sorry, wait a minute. You have enough technology to save the entire world, and you are, reading us books.
Right. So you bought our apartment complex. Thank you for that. But like, let's really get something. I do feel that there is potential seriously in a sequel there where his sort of outlook doesn't work out the way that he thought it would, because it is kind of a pat ending where he's just like, I'm going to give everybody a lot of money and everything's going to be good. I do feel that on that, like, that's kind of what I was tying back into Killmonger's thing of giving a bunch of people weapons does feel like it would more attain the result that Killmonger would want out of that. Like, I could see arming a whole bunch of like depressed and sort of upset, like the less fortunate of society, and that would really result in something. But T'Challa's optimism kind of feels a little bit I don't know, sort of like that's the superhero-y aspect of it. Killmonger's feels more grounded in a lot of ways, and I think that's why I like that character.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
Let's see. So I guess the final point for this one would be Infinity War also came out this year in 2018, right? So did they make the right... If you're going to say that they made this Best Picture decision based on it's kind of the Return of the King thing, where you've had a whole bunch of movies and we haven't given you anything, so let's make arguably the weaker movie the nominee for this one. They did with Scorsese too. I'm not saying that this is a weak movie or anything, but is Infinity War a better choice for a Best Picture for the Marvel Universe movies?
I personally think yes. That being said, I understand. I think that I don't think that nominating Black Panther is we're going to give an award to we're going to give a nomination to the Marvel Universe in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's what you were saying before. I think this one stands away from the rest of it enough and does enough on its own as far as the story that it's telling, the representation of the people in the movie, the design, everything. I think the culture and the cultural impact of all of that, I think that's what's getting the nomination more than it is just you guys are doing a nice job over there at Marvel. Here's a nomination.
Right. You've done 18 movies. Here it's time that we recognize your cumulative effort.
Because I think, as far as cumulative effort goes, Infinity War all the way. I mean, because you can't even argue with that, just what they're doing there.
Yeah.
As far as having all of those threads come together and, presenting this new kind of villain that has never been in these movies, it's a completely different beast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I get it. I get it why they picked this one. And I don't disagree with the choice. I think I like this choice more than I like Bohemian Rhapsody.
I think this is a better movie than Bohemian Rhapsody is. I'm kind of intrigued because this would have been easier in our 5 Best Picture world of a decade ago. Like I would have been like, I don't think Black Panther is really one of those 5 movies, but it's a pretty good movie. It is kind of in that. It is, if you consider like pick 6 to 10 or 6 to 8 or whatever it is in a given year to be sort of the honorable mentions. I think it's an honorable mention kind of movie for it. I don't have a real problem with the nomination. I do think that it's so much of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though it is pretty distinct from them, and it's probably the most fully realized, as the little critical blurb on the tomato meter said. I think that it is closer to the MCU than it is far away from it. And if that's the case, I do see it as sort of a running nomination thing where they are going to just reward basically the huge amount of money that the MCU has made for the Academy and things like that. And I would give it to an Infinity War at that point, although I think Infinity War, and it's funny because Infinity War itself, the movie itself, represents that cumulative effort of everything, and Black Panther stands alone as its own thing. So it's tough to say, but
and I would say that Infinity War, as awesome as it is, did not have the same. Well, no, it didn't. I was going to say it does not have the same cultural impact as Black Panther did.
No, it didn't. But I think. Well, if I were to go back and pick one to rewatch, I'd rewatch Infinity War, I think.
Yeah. I've already watched that like 3 times.
Yeah. So I think that it doesn't have the cultural impact, but it has a large, like Black Panther has a sort of specific cultural interest in that it's like the conversation is much more specific when you're talking about it. And I think that Infinity Wars is just the best popular film thing that they were trying to do. Like Infinity War is just that. It's like, it's a cultural impact because of how many people watched it. Infinity War made more money than this. Yeah, obviously. So, but both of them made a tremendous amount of money. So it's, at a certain point, you're just splitting hairs.
Yeah, I'm looking at the whole list of nominees, which is 8, I believe.
Yep.
And Black Panther, even in this grouping, it does stand out as feeling weird. Like Bohemian Rhapsody, say what you want about it, fine, but I get it. Like it's that kind of movie. Black Klansman, get it. Star is Born, get it. Roma, get it. Green Book, get it. Favorite, get it. Vice, get it. Black Panther, I don't know. It still feels weird to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, whatever. That's, cool.
It's good to have, eventually you start coming across as if not being on that list makes it a bad movie somehow, but it's really not the case.
Which it doesn't at all.
Yeah, it's just.
And I think we talked about this a little bit maybe at the beginning of Bohemian Rhapsody or some point, which is like, what does a Best Picture movie nomination mean? And like, what does it look like? What does that kind of movie look like? And is it bad if it goes outside of that box?
Right.
Yep.
I think judging
'Cause I
by judging by my 5 years later test, which is that it's not my idea, but if you have to wait 5 years to see what the best picture truly was and then look back at it, I would think at this point I will remember Infinity War more than Black Panther, and I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of the other Best Picture nominees, so I don't know how it would stack up compared to those once I eventually see some more of them. But I feel like I'm not particularly going to remember Black Panther in a Best Picture kind of way, where I look back on it and go like, oh, right, remember that year? That was the year Black Panther came out. I do kind of feel that way about Infinity War, even if I think Black Panther is a better movie than Infinity War on its like face value.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for busting open the paradigm of what a Best Picture looks like, but yeah, I don't know. Bohemian, the two that we've watched, like when I think of Best Picture, I think of like Schindler's List or There Will Be Blood or something like that, and you get just thinking of those things, you get kind of like a visceral reaction. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, either one of these movies, I don't really get that. So yeah, I mean, it's the only I've seen The Favorite. I don't get that with The Favorite. Those are the only ones that I've seen.
Roma kind of feels. I have not seen Roma, but Roma feels like it's that. Judging by how people react to that movie, it feels like it's the traditional Best Picture type nominee.
Yes, I would say if you're going to pick one, the two traditional ones are Roma and A Star Is Born. I think. Yep.
Well, we'll see with the B-roll, I guess, where it is. But yeah, that's. I think we're done with Black Panther. I enjoyed this very much, except for the last half hour, which I thought was kind of just the generic MCU type stuff. But I thought I thought they did a great job with the villain. I like Killmonger better than Thanos or however you want to pronounce it. If only because I don't think, and I don't know if they've explained Thanos's ideology more in the previous movies that I haven't seen him in.
They have not.
Okay, so Thanos's point doesn't really make sense to me in the way that Killmonger's does here. Thanos feels like he has a bizarre belief that is unfounded by evidence, and he's just going to continue to carry it out.
Yeah. Killmonger is probably a better character. I think. I think that with Thanos, it's the way that they present him in the movie and the work that they do to make him actually kind of relatable goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just I guess my thing would be about Thanos is he has the belief that the universe is overpopulated, but I don't see any evidence that that's the case. So his solution seems like it's curing a problem that is not evident to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a problem that's born out of the problem that he had on his own planet. You know, I mean, he's nuts. Yeah. First and foremost, you know, and his. But I feel it's like if Jor-El on Krypton managed to survive the destruction of Krypton, and it drove him nuts, and he was like, you know, now I have to, you know, spread, you know, he's taking the thing that affected his home specifically and
just casting it over,
extrapolating it out incorrectly to a need for the entire universe.
Yeah, I just feel that if it I feel that he does have a point if there was indeed an overpopulation issue in the universe. Like he's kind of battling in a tough spot where he's saying that the universe, this vast empty space, is overpopulated. I do like if Thanos was truly correct, I do think he's an interesting villain. I just don't like if it relies on him being insane and thinking about what his previous life was like growing up, it becomes a little bit less impactful to me. Where I think that Killmonger's plan is sort of, I'm going to fix a problem here, and I understand what the problem is in like my real audience sense.
Maybe we can still heal you.
Why? So you could just lock me up? Nah. Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships. Because they knew death was better than bondage.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think Killmonger has much more interesting things to say about the situation than Thanos does.
It's just something. It's just something about that snap. The simplicity of the snap is like such a summation of an evil idea. Like you just like it's like boom, there it is, click, it's over. So you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to think about it. It's just boom. Now half of you are gone, and we're gonna have to deal with the fallout from that.
It's the power of the Infinity Gauntlet, man.
That's right.
I do have to say also, I am so happy that Claw got to use his laser arm because I wasn't sure that they were going to do that the first time that I saw this, and I was very happy because in the comics he's this weird looking like pink colored villain with like his
power is
blaster.
sound or something, isn't it? I was reading
it's vibranium based.
Okay,
I don't know, but the gun on his arm in the comic looks like a big satellite dish.
Sure.
It's kind of silly looking.
Yep.
He is a character who's very silly looking. So when he was in Civil War and he didn't have that arm, I was disappointed, but then he got his arm cut off and I was like, oh, I see where this is going. So I was very happy to see that he got to use his laser arm.
It's Andy Serkis, which is shocking to me when I was reviewing the information. I was like, I can't believe that's what Andy Serkis looks like at this point. I always think of Serkis more as Gollum sized, but he's actually a pretty solid guy. Yeah. Well, we're done talking about Black Panther, which is not the version that Wesley Snipes expressed interest in working on in 1992, but instead is the Ryan Coogler directed one starring Chadwick Boseman. How old do you think Chadwick Boseman is, by the way? This surprised me as well.
29.
41.
Whoa.
He's much
Really?
older than he carries himself.
Wow.
He looks like
I was thinking like mid 30s at most.
Yeah, that's.
Wow.
I was shocked. He certainly he doesn't look much older than Michael B. Jordan does at this point. I thought they were like comparable.
Yeah.
And Jordan's 31 at this point. Where's Wallace? String. Where's Wallace? That's it. I think we're done. Done with this Black Panther. So we're going to talk about. We'll have the B-roll. I think we decided on Star is Born, Clay. Although I don't know when that comes out on Amazon to be able to watch it. So that is currently the leading favorite for what the B-roll that we're going to do, but it might be something else if we can't get that done in time for the Oscars. That's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. You can support the show by following all the social media. There's all the links in the video description below. You can support the show financially. Patreon.com/the Pensky File. A couple $2 a month. You get extra stuff. You can go to PayPal link, which is down below. And you can also buy merch at the Teespring store, the shirts and cups and things like that.
I still can't believe that Green Book was directed by one of the guys who directed Dumb and Dumber.
Yep. And Something About Mary, the jizz in the hair guy really thought it was time for him to move into racial prejudice movies, I guess. I have not seen Green Book.
That being said, I do believe Dumb and Dumber is a masterpiece, and I don't mean that like facetiously. I think it is a very well-constructed comedy.
No, they're good. The Farrellys are good. They're like a it's just when you get stuck in the tone.
They had a couple good movies, and then they kind of zipped down pretty quickly. But yes, they were good ones.
Yes, they went to the well a few too many times, and I think maybe Green Book is them stepping away.
Too many.
Yeah, or maybe Peter was the unfunny one who worked on structure all the time, and his brother was the one who wanted to tell the dick jokes and everything. That's it. I think we're done with that. So we'll be back with maybe A Star is Born. If not, it'll be something else. That'll be a kind of a surprise, but we'll let you know before it goes out. And then after that, we're going to be back with Amy Adams, and that's Leap Year and Arrival. And then we'll be back on a normal schedule. Clay, do you have anything you want to add before we take off?
I don't think so. Night Moves is out now. If you want to get a copy of that, please do. And Badass Batman the Animated Series Show podcast, where me and Sean Murphy talk about Batman the Animated Series. You can listen to that too. We're working on the second season as we speak. And hopefully it's out before the next election.
A lot more editing if you don't make it that point.
Oh boy, yeah, you're telling me.
That's it. So we've seen 2 of the Best Picture nominees. If you had to pick one of the 2 that we've seen, Clay, which one would win?
Oh Jesus, I would say Black Panther just on principle.
Yeah, I think I'd say. I think I'd have to. If it was just these 2, I'd say certainly Black Panther is the winner out of those 2 films. But yeah, we'll see. The Oscars are February 24th, so we'll see where things stand. I'd like to get at least a couple more under my belt. We're only going to do the one more for Real Ripe, but I would like to at least watch Roma, I think. And is that the only? You've seen The Favorite? Is that the only other one that you've seen?
I have. Yes, I would very much like to see Black Klansman and Vice.
Yeah, I don't think Vice has a single chance of winning, but it's an interesting movie that it got nominated, I think.
Yeah, honestly, Green Book and Roma don't really interest me.
Yep.
I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure they're good. I don't know.
Green Book does not interest me whatsoever, but Roma, just by the little clips that play on Netflix when you scroll past Roma, it really looks clean. Just to watch it as like a visual thing, I think would be interesting. We'll see if
a friend of mine actually did not like it, and he it was one of those things where he's like, I need to tell this to you because everybody else I've said it to has looked at me like I'm some sort of asshole. And he was telling me all the reasons he didn't like it, and I was like, all right, well, I haven't seen it, but I'm glad I could be here for you to vent your frustrations about being cast out by society because you didn't like a movie.
It is nice that it's available on Netflix, though, immediately. Like Black Panther is as well. But it's nice to be able to watch the movies, some of them at least, to see what they stand.
Well, is Roma is a Netflix movie, isn't it?
Yeah, so it came out in theaters so that it could get nominated, but it is a Netflix movie. Yeah.
Interesting. Changing the way things work over there.
Yes, absolutely.
Even though their 10-second back button is still a piece of shit for some reason.
I have a bigger problem with the full speed reverse is not fast enough for me. It takes a long time to go backwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
And let's not even get into why playing all of those previews with sound
is terrible.
Oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. I think it's all part of their plan of like making you pick things quicker without actually thinking about it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, because you don't have time to sit and like think about it when you click over to something and then all of a sudden it just starts playing audio and video at you. It's like, okay, it's just chill out.
Yeah.
Chill out.
Netflix is really wonderful. A couple other things. It also needs to fix its sound balancing, which is always a problem. It's not just Netflix, but movies have a problem with sound balancing, which I've managed to fix just by now we use headphones, like RF frequency headphones that hook into the TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just much. Otherwise, it's just you're just in a battle with your remote about how loud the TV is. Like while you're like, it's an explosion followed by T'Challa whispering something, and you gotta like, oh Jesus, what did he say? I gotta turn it up, and then the explosion, it's too loud. The kids wake up. But the headphones, I really recommend headphones if people are like want the most out of their audio. I think it's really. I was happy with the investment.
Yeah, I end up for movies where I really care about the sound, I end up doing this like balance between my TV and my sound bar. So I have them both kind of up, and the sound bar maybe a little bit up a little bit louder, just to kind of like fill it out.
Yeah,
it seems to work pretty good.
Yeah. That's it. We're done. Black Panther, Real Ripe and Real Rotten. Signing off. We will see you guys next time.